Okay, hello dear friends. Today with me is Dr. Anirudh Vyas. He is a leading cardiologist of the town and he is specialized in electrophysiology. Today I got a chance to attend his lecture on management of ventricular tachycardia. Fortunately, we have recorded the session. You are going to listen in coming 20-30 minutes. Don't go on the quality of the slides or the lights or the quality of the video. Just listen to the content what he is speaking. I'm assuring you that this is one of the finest lecture you have listened in last 1 year. So thank you, Dr. Vyas.
Thank you. Pleasure. I have tried to include multiple interesting cases which I have come across during my practice in this talk, and the focus is how to manage VT. VT comes in two presentations. One is the bedside, like a patient presenting with VT in emergency. Second is a clinic-based management of VT. Both the things are different. Both the times the issues are different. So it is about immediate care and long-term care. When we talk about immediate care, we need to understand what is VT storm. VT storm is 3 or more sustained episodes of VT or VF, or if patients are having AICD, implantable cardiac defibrillator, they receive those shocks because of VT, and such shocks are more than or equal to 3 in a span of 24 hours. How to manage VT storms? There are a large number of algorithms and large number of flowcharts which are available easily on internet. But when we see a patient with VT, these are the classical salient issues which we should understand. So when we see a monomorphic VT, it should be brought to sinus rhythm as soon as possible by whatsoever means. The most easy way to bring a patient with VT to sinus rhythm is not injection of amiodarone or anything, it is shock. The shock is synchronized or unsynchronized. Whenever patients present with monomorphic VT with well-formed QRS complexes, the shock should be synchronized so that it falls on peak of R wave. When there are no R waves like in VF, it should be unsynchronized, because if we synchronize such a shock, it will keep on searching R wave and will not give a shock. But if during monomorphic VT we give a unsynchronized shock, and this shock, and if a shock falls on T wave, it can lead to VF. Second aspect is we should always apply jelly. We have, whenever patient presents with VT or VF in a tertiary care hospital, most of the times we have critical care people who are helping us and who are taking the lead of the CPR. So 10 to 20 seconds being wasted in arranging and applying jelly over the pads is very important. If we don't apply the jelly, one, the shock can be less effective because the tissue and the paddle impedance is very high. Secondly, it leads to burn. So even if the patient goes home alive, he's going to curse you lifetime for the shocks. So DC shocks or CPR is also a matter of public understanding. So how to manage VT storms is a issue which should be discussed with public also and with the doctors also. Okay. Most of the problem with management of VT or VF is the delayed first response. When we delay the delivery of shock in an emergency situation, which should not be done. I'll tell you this example. This was a 40-year-old gentleman who came to my home complaining of some chest pain in the morning. We discussed that he might be having an acute coronary event and he requires angiogram and he needs further evaluation. And I asked him to rush to nearest hospital, so that an ECG can be taken and further steps can be taken. He agreed, he stood up and he fell down. So this is the most common circumstance which we encounter. Sudden cardiovascular and hemodynamic collapse which occurs in VF. Now this gentleman, he fell down in my drawing room and we couldn't do anything about it because he was at my home. So I did CPR. I asked few helps to do as well, the relatives, etc. We continued CPR for almost 30 minutes, and then we were able to get a defibrillator. Unfortunately, the defibrillator of Medanta Hospital went in an ambulance to another hospital to fetch a patient. So we arranged that defibrillator. We could arrange that defibrillator at my home only after 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, when I attached the paddle, he was still in VF. If we continue a good CPR till the time we can deliver a shock, most of the times patient they sustain that their VF. So one shock was delivered, second shock was delivered, and later on he came back to sinus rhythm. Later we did an angiogram. He had an anterior wall MI. He underwent angioplasty to LED. So what I mean to say is that whenever VF present, the most important aspect, forget about drugs, is the adequate cardiac massage which maintains the cardiopulmonary, which maintains the perfusion to brain. I am less wise compared to all of you for this thing. So this is the thing. Now sometimes when such a defibrillator is not nearby and patients are at risk of frequent such episodes, we apply device ICD. Whenever there is VF, the device gives a shock and patient comes to a hospital. Once a patient enters a hospital, ideally we should not let the device give the shock, because the device has a finite battery and the shocks are painful. So we should try to stop the shocks of the battery as soon as possible. We all understand that there is a programmer, there is a wand which can stop the shocks of the battery. We can program the device like that. But till that time the programmer is available, we should all understand that if we put a magnet over the device, the shocks immediately stop. So once inside the hospital, the shock should be delivered by the defibrillator and not by the device, because this costs the battery. The shocks of the device cost the battery, and the defibrillator can be used. So this is how we apply the magnet over the device once a patient presents with shock, so that the device shuts down at least. And if he has a VF, we can always attach external pads and deliver the shock.
Generally, we never keep this
Magnet. We should have. We all emergencies and all ICUs who entertain patients who have implantable cardiac devices, they should have a magnet.
It can be any magnet and any
It can be any magnet.
एक बार आपने मैग्नेट रखा वो बंद हो गया उसके बाद वापस कैसे वो चालू होगा?
If we remove the magnet, still the device is on. Again it is on. Yeah.
It will not
So
deliver shock. Well.
it will deliver the shock if we remove the magnet, but till the time magnet is placed, the therapies are suspended.
Okay.
It is important to save the battery. For example, if a patient presents with pacemaker and we are doubtful that whether pacemaker is functioning or not, then also we can apply the magnet. Magnet suspends the sensing system of the pacemaker.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we put a magnet, the sensing system is gone and the pacemaker works like asynchronous. So it will not sense intrinsic rhythm, but it will keep on pacing. So that is a way to test the system, the functioning of the pacemaker also, and functioning and the system of ICD also. Sometimes, like this patient presented with cardiac arrest, and he had a very poor LV. His ejection fraction was 12%. So he was immediately delivered a shock. This was the ECG after the shock. So this fast arrhythmia, which led to his hemodynamic collapse, was actually supraventricular tachycardia. I ablated it. It was AVNRT. So we should understand that all tachycardia which can cause hemodynamic collapse are not essentially VT. It can be supraventricular tachycardia as well. Any tachycardia which causes rate to rise so much so that the cardiac output can be compromised, it will lead to hemodynamic compromise. Such kind of tachycardia should be immediately treated with DC shock. This is another example of such a tachycardia. It is a fast, broad and irregular tachycardia. This is pre-excited atrial fibrillation. It is a potential cause of sudden death. Here there is an accessory pathway because of underlying WPW syndrome. Now these patients, whenever they present in such a rapid rate, you see in the rhythm strip, sometimes the rate is as high as 300 per minute. At such a rapid rate, ventricle cannot generate a cardiac output because ventricle is contracting so fast that it cannot actually deliver a blood volume outside. In such a circumstance, patients go into hemodynamic collapse and they may die. So
PMVT is prevention.
he was diagnosed as polymorphic ventricular tachycardia because the complexes were looking polymorphic, but essentially they are irregular. So it is atrial fibrillation with underlying WPW. So we can see there is a broad QRS complex, the short PR interval, and a slurred delta wave. He interwent ablation. You see, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth QRS complex is narrow compared to fifth one. Yeah? So this is during ablation. So once we ablate, the pathway is gone.
Ablation, conic ablation.
No, sir. Radio frequency ablation. EPS and radio frequency ablation. So this is indication for emergency radio frequency ablation. We do a lot of emergency radio frequency ablation for PSVT, but for pre-excited atrial fibrillation like this, it's an emergency indication. Because pre-excited AF is potentially life-threatening. It's a rapid rate पे ventricle because of such a rapid atrial rate and one-to-one conduction, they degenerate into VF. It is reported. It's reported that pre-excited AF can lead to sudden death. So there are certain triggers. Most of the times there are certain triggers which trigger the VT storm. So we should understand what is the trigger and we should treat the trigger. Trigger can be ischemia, it can be electrolyte imbalance, it can be worsening heart failure, or it can be drug toxicity. This is one example of drug toxicity. This was the polymorphic VT storm the patient presented with, and we stopped the drug, and the drug was digoxin. This is another toxin, electrolyte imbalance. This was hyperkalemia, which led to VT storms and
this happened in front of Ashru.
Yeah.
This happened. Okay. And his potassium levels were
10, yeah. You managed it. I remember it. The gentleman, old gentleman from Ratlam, yeah.
Ratlam.
Yes. So after correcting potassium, the ECG became normal.
Yeah.
So this was the presenting ECG. In front of the toilet, he went into cardiac arrest with this ECG, and his potassium was 10.7 and 10.3. Sorry. This was the ECG after correction, after 3-4 days, and he was discharged alive. This was another lady who presented with SVT and was given IV amiodarone. Now IV amiodarone leads to QT prolongation. Most of the time. Yes. You recall it very well. Yes, sir. So it leads to QT prolongation. Amiodarone. QT prolongation led to ventricular flutter. Or she was not dying from PSVT, but she was dying from this ventricular flutter again and again. She had multiple cardiac arrest, revived, sent. We did EP studies in RFA. The QRS become normal. So this is circumstance where there is a set trigger which triggers the VT storm.
10 या 12 बार बढ़ते
So we have to treat the trigger of the VT storm. We cannot keep on shocking the patient with VT. Whatever the trigger is, we have to identify it and we have to treat it. Sometimes the trigger are genetic. Like this girl, 3-year-old girl, she presented with multiple episodes of so-called epilepsy. She was following up in a neurology clinic. An ECG was done which showed prolonged QT interval. Okay, and during her Holter, we documented that what was labeled as epilepsy was actually VF, Torsades. This was because of a congenital long QT syndrome. She was started on beta blockers. She improved. Now she does not have much seizures. Just a clinical pearl. Whenever we see an ECG, we should first of all rule out long QT, because long QT is the most common, most important fatal arrhythmic harbinger. Long QT leads to VF. So long QT is simply diagnosed whenever the QT interval, beginning of Q wave to end of T wave or U wave, is more than half of RR interval. Whenever it is more than half of RR interval, it is long. So long QT interval is diagnosed like this. Another trigger is ischemia. You can see the ST elevation in lead 1 here. And these patients, they are at risk of dying. As many as 20 to 40% of patients who have acute MI, they die suddenly because of this phenomena. This is polymorphic VT. Okay. Once we cardiovert these patients, this is the ECG. So in anterior wall MI, precipitating a polymorphic VT. The treatment is lidocaine. The first treatment which should be given in such circumstance with ischemia is Zylocard, lignocaine, and not amiodarone, and later on revascularization. This polymorphic VT is different from Torsades. Torsades occurs with long QT. Polymorphic VT occurs with normal QT. Normal QT occurs in ischemia, while long QT occurs in bradycardia, it occurs in hypokalemia, it occurs in drug toxicity. The treatment in such circumstances is pacing to increase the heart rate. When we increase the heart rate, the QT interval decreases. Then isoprenaline and magnesium.
The overdrive.
And we may overdrive or we may just increase the sinus rate. Most of the times, long QT related VF is seen in setting of bradycardia. Like this patient is from our ICU. He presented in night and we thought that the rhythm is stable and we can just watch him over. And in the night only, he started throwing PVCs. Some of them were falling on T wave. And you see, it degenerated into VF. इसका ये sweep speed कम कर दिया है, तो so that the whole event can be seen. Yeah, whole event can be captured. You see, there were PVCs which were falling on T wave and it led to VF. Thankfully, he was survived. But whenever a patient presents in this ECG, it is at this time we have to act. This patient needed early temporary pacing. If we postpone it, it is risky. And you see the time when it threw VT. It was 5 a.m.
But is the first rhythm, what you will call it?
It is complete heart block. Complete heart block with prolonged QT.
Okay.
So most of the patients who have heart block, they don't die from asystole. They die from VF. And VF occurs because whenever there is heart block and the QT is prolonged, the escape rhythm is unstable. And there are multiple ventricular foci which gives on their rhythm. So this is one ventricular rhythm. This is one ventricular escape rhythm. This is another. So this second rhythm, if it falls on T wave of the first complex, it can lead to VF. It actually led to, it's in front of us, and he went into cardiac arrest. So CPR, shock and stuff like that. The best treatment is to do a temporary pacing at this point of time. So then there may be patients who present with monomorphic VT post-MI. This is also common in emergency settings. We will see monomorphic VT patients presenting. Now the treatment for such patients, most of the time which we do is IV amiodarone, which may be logically correct, but as far as effect is concerned, it is not that effective because amiodarone is a slow acting drug. It takes 1 week to actually have its class 3 antiarrhythmic effect. Most of the times, the initial effect of amiodarone is beta blockade. So we might as well give injection esmolol or beta log. Another treatment which works very well is injection of lignocaine. So I think when a patient with old MI presents with monomorphic VT, the treatment of choice, if not shock, because of any
This you are talking about a stable VT.
stable VT, old MI, not the VT storm or VF, then the treatment of choice should be injection of lignocaine followed by injection of beta blocker, which are far more effective and more safe compared to amiodarone, because both of these drugs, they don't prolong QT, while amiodarone can prolong QT. Amiodarone causes precipitous hypotension also, because the carrier moiety in that IV drug, it leads to hypotension. So for such circumstance, I think the drug of first and second choice would be Zylocard and beta blocker. Third choice should be amiodarone. IV amiodarone, actual class antiarrhythmic effect, the class 1C and class 3 effect, it takes one week to start over. Then we see post-MI, post-thrombolysis, we see such kind of ventricular rhythm, which is accelerated idioventricular rhythm. Most of the times they don't need any treatment. They are because of increased vagal tone. Most of the times they respond themselves. Supposedly, if it is causing hemodynamic compromise, the treatment is atropine to increase the sinus rate. If we increase the sinus rate, this can be overdriven.
Basically, it's not looking like bradycardia.
Yeah. No, but this will not respond to shock, this will not respond to amiodarone.
Okay.
It is because of increased vagal tone.
Yeah.
So we have to counteract the vagal tone. So accelerated idioventricular rhythm, which is seen immediately after post thrombolysis or in acute MI settings, they are because of increased vagal tone. So we have to cut down the vagal tone. If we keep on treating this ventricular rhythm by shocks or anything, it won't work. So no antiarrhythmics except atrofen. So we have to increase the sinus rate. This was another circumstance. A patient who had an ejection fraction of 32%, post entry wall MI, post CABG, fourth day, started throwing VF. And the VF were, the number was, it was VF storm. It was like 27 episodes in a span of 3 hours. 27 shocks he got. And he was not responding to anything because everything requires time. If we give amiodarone, Zylogard, beta blocker, anything, it requires time. Most of the time we should understand that our focus is on the VF, okay, most of the times. But we should understand that it is not the VF which is the problem. It is the PVC. You see the third QRS complex?
Yes, yes.
And you see that PVC which is falling on the T-wave. These PVCs in the setting of MI, they come from Purkinje fibers. These Purkinje fibers, they are notorious to not die during acute MI with the infarct because they are endocardial. They receive blood from the endocardial cavity. Because they don't die. Hello? Haji. चलेगा ना चलेगा हाँ चल मैं उनके लिए फ़ोन करता हूँ आपको 2 मिनट में I'll call you back keep him there so ठीक है so these PVCs when they fall on T wave they lead to VF you see the second episode short run of VT that's because the PVC falls on T wave we manage this patient by doing rapid atrial pacing. The pacing wire was kept in coronary sinus. It pays the left atrium. Once we pace the left atrium, it leads to total suppression of these PVCs and normalization of the rhythm. We kept this temporary pacing in the left atrium, in the coronary sinus, for 48 hours. So it took all the drugs, amiodarone, Zylogard, beta blocker, to act on those PVCs. To suppress the PVCs, it required 48 hours. So he was put on general anesthesia, complete knockdown. And this is how it worked. This was first of its kind ever reported incidents where coronary sinus was used as a site for left atrial pacing. And we could also publish it. So what I feel is that in a setting with acute emergency with VT, what we should understand is first of all the correct diagnosis, VT versus SVT, like I showed 2 cases of SVT. Then identify and treat the trigger. Then the antiarrhythmic drug. We should always understand that in emergency settings, amiodarone is a useless drug. More important drugs are lignocaine, beta blockers, and phenytoin. So I have seen very good responses with IV phenytoin, sir. If we give it like 800 mg diluted in 100 ml of normal saline over half and half to 1 hour, it works very good with VT. Phenytoin is a class 1B antiarrhythmic agent.
But the issue is that all the ACLS guidelines are supporting amiodarone.
True, very true. The guidelines they work with the general consensus kind of thing, this is the real life situation.
Phenytoin we can use in fact,
Yes.
like you say that you have the experience.
Yes.
And
It works very well. Yes, and no side effect also. Yeah. Then sedation and general anesthesia, and then we can always decrease the sympathetic drive by giving some nerve blocks, sympathetic nerve blocks in cervical region or in thoracic region. Sometimes epidural anesthesia, thoracic epidural anesthesia. We put a catheter in the epidural space, and we give sympathetic blocking agents. And then pacing. These are important aspects in management of VT in an acute emergency situation. These are the situations where we do chronic management, bedside management of VT. The important role is drugs, device, and public education. So drugs are, I think, in order of preference, beta blockers, sotalol, flecainide, phenytoin, and amiodarone. A device is important because patients who are at risk of VT, they tend to have another VT. We might save one episode, but we might not be able to save another. It's only the device which can save another episode. And then I want to stress upon public education, CPR trainings. In fact, we all should, with critical care group, we should devise certain programs in Indore itself, because Indore in any case is in quite a limelight at national level. We should understand that we need to educate public in general, and some certain groups which encounter public, like traffic police officers, like fire brigade people, like police departments, like nursing staff, about the training of what is a effective CPR.